Welcome back to Arkansas First Reports, where we give a voice to the grassroots and put a spotlight on issues shaping our state. Today, we welcome back a very familiar and fearless advocate, Bryan Norris. You may remember that he was just here a few weeks ago on Arkansas First Reports, where we talked about hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots, because that's what he's been fighting for. You also may remember from that podcast that he is a combat veteran, a civic leader, and a driving force behind Arkansas's first county-wide vote on paper ballots. Well, he's not done fighting for election integrity and transparency just yet. Today, he's here to make a major announcement. He's running for the Arkansas Secretary of State, and he's taken on an establishment insider, Senator Kim Hammer. From leading boots on the ground petitions to being sued all the way to the Supreme Court, Bryan's not just talking about reform, he's lived it. Get ready for a bold, unfiltered conversation about why he believes Arkansas deserves a Secretary of State who answers to the people, not to the political machine. And I do want to encourage you to go back and watch the former episode that we did with him so that you can really get a more inside scoop of what he's been fighting for. And the name of that podcast was From the Battlefield to the Ballot Box, Bryan Norris on election integrity, paper ballots, and the fight for citizen power. Bryan, welcome back.
It's great to be back. Thanks so much for having me again.
So let's talk about what has transpired just over the last few weeks.
A lot.
Yes, let's do. So, when you were here before, we talked about your fight that you led in Independence County for paper ballots, and you guys got sued, and you fought that battle. And along the way, of course, we had this year's legislative session, and we saw a lot of really unjust legislation that was passed that Kim Hammer was leading the way on, with keeping in mind that he plans to be the next Secretary of State. So let's start there. Talk about that.
Okay. Well, before we jump onto that one, I'm not a politician.
Right.
I'm a husband, a father, a veteran, soldier, Christian. I don't want to be considered a politician.
Right.
I'm not interested in being in their social club. I'm not interested in going to their cocktail parties. I don't want to be their friends. I don't want to be their enemy, but I don't need that lifestyle.
Right.
I'm on a mission, and my desire is to give the people of Arkansas back elections in which they have confidence in. Because sadly, our state has one of the lowest voter turnouts in the nation. Mm-hmm. And when I was walking around during the petition process, I was asking people why they didn't vote. And they would say that they didn't trust the elections and their vote didn't count.
Right.
And as someone that sacrificed a good portion of their career believing in that, it took me back. Because when I left and joined the military, I didn't get that sense. I got a sense that people, trusted and wanted to be a part of the process and did vote. And so that change was quite shocking.
Right.
And going from Afghanistan and Iraq, where people would risk their lives and dip their finger in ink just to vote, to coming home and having people that got it so easy to go and vote, not exercising that.
Right.
I couldn't get my mind around that. So identified the problem and wanted to come up with a solution. So as you allude to, we were sued and all that. And then because we were successful, that flipped a switch this legislative cycle in which a slurry of laws were passed to take away that opportunity.
Right.
And deny the county residents the ability to affect change at the county level in their state. I've talked to a lot of politicians, legislators, about those set of laws that came through, also known as the Hammer Bills.
Right.
And they all said that it was one of two things. It was to get ahead of the ability for an abortion laws to be successful across the state, or that it was direct democracy, and democracies don't work, and that's why the representatives are there, and they're supposed to enact the will of the people. And to which I said, well, okay, I can understand your thought process on the abortion piece, but if you really wanted to solve abortion, you can do a constitutional amendment and solidify it through the legislator there. You don't have to take away our liberties to do that. And that's a double-edged sword, because one day, the opposition party is going to be in charge,
Right.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and you and I discussed last time that I believe that abortion issue was weaponized for the passage of these bills. I don't believe for a moment had that amendment had made it to the ballot box to be voted on, that it would have passed in the state of Arkansas. The provisions that were there in place to take care of any mishaps that we already have on the books were done. And I believe that the emotions, right, in the pro-life movement, and again, I'll remind people that I have been a advocate and actually an abolition. I believe in abolition of abortion. I believe it should be abolished. So I am very pro-life, but I saw the emotion that was being played on this issue to have people come and surround Kim Hammer in getting these bills passed. Let's not beat around the bush. It was weaponized. This issue was. And to me, it's actually sickening that very smart people who I have a lot of respect for fell into being manipulated to believe that these bills that they needed to support because of abortion. It's astonishing to me that people did not see behind the curtain on this and what it does in the future. It's not about abortion. It's about what it does across the board in the future for any petitions, for anyone that wants to go out and start a petition. All of the things that are really put in effect now that hinders that process greatly.
It's an impossibility, pretty much, to do a county petition and redress your government that way.
Right.
And the other part that I was mentioning was the direct democracy part, to which I would reply to those legislators, well, you don't have that problem when we vote you in.
Right.
And there's a big difference. But I mean, I understand the concept of direct democracy, and it's not great. It's been tried before. And when the people can vote themselves wealth from the public coffers, they're going to do so. But that's not what the petition process is. It's putting a measure before the people to vote on, just like we do with constitutional amendments in the state. Do you consider those direct democracy votes as well?
Right.
Tax increases. The petition process does nothing more than raise an issue to the level in which the people get to decide at the ballot box, just like they do for their representative, just like they do for a constitutional amendment.
Right.
And I thought that was very disingenuous for a lot of them to and it was really wild to see how that just spread out throughout all of them. Like, that was the message coming down from top, and it was just repeated throughout.
Yes.
Someone was directing them to those talking points and what to do. And we're not being represented. We're being ruled.
Right.
In that regard.
Yes.
Someone's pulling the chains, they're being told what to do, and they're just executing that agenda.
Yes.
Which, that's not who we are. That's not what we should be. And that's what I'm going to change.
Right, right. So was it this one issue that led you to say, okay, I've been fighting in my county, and you have done such a great job going around the state, talking in different committees around the state of Arkansas. But now you've gone from talking and doing your own fight to, okay, I'm going to take on the fight here in Arkansas across the board.
Totally unexpected.
Yeah.
It's not something I was looking for. Selfishly, or honestly, I was looking to go maybe mayor of Batesville, or maybe challenge my state rep in Batesville. That was honestly what I was looking to do on my glide path. But sometimes you don't get a choice. You kind of get pushed into things.
Right.
And the more I was ignoring what was shaping up to be in front of me, which was going for Secretary of State, the the more difficult things were becoming, right? And sometimes you just got to let go and allow someone else to take the wheel. You can learn from blunt force trauma or 1,000 repetitions.
Right.
It's one of the things we would always tell people. You can choose.
Yeah.
One of the two. And so sometimes I'm a little more hard-headed, and it took a little bit more beating. But really, the way it came about is I got a phone call, several phone calls for people asking me. And the answer was no, thank you, but no. And then again, it went from being no, thank you, but no, but my wife is not going to entertain this. I drug my wife and kids across the world in the military. We've settled down. This is where we feel like we should be. I could handle being a mayor, maybe a state rep, and family time wouldn't come at such a cost. So, I promised my wife something, so I'm going to stick there. And that's the one we would have to convince, and just left it at that. Persistence callers kept calling, asking me to reconsider. And I told them, we're taking a vacation and going to Dallas. I will talk with my wife about that. I promise you that I will. I'm pretty sure she's going to say no. And then I'll give you that answer. And after that, well, he called me the next morning, and I had him on speakerphone. And it just so happened that my wife walked into the room at that time. And I said, well, I told you yesterday my plan was to talk to her on our vacation, but she's in the room now. Here you go. You want to get me on this? There's the one you got to convince. And he spoke to her, laid it out for her, and she said, I'll think about it and let you know. And next morning she came down and she said, do it. And so that was it for me. And I have a personality type that when I get into something, I'm all into it. I don't. What's the point in just limping in, or doing something halfway? And I also believe that the way the relationship works with me and my God is that if you want to do something, you got to earn it. You got to work for it too. He's going to meet you halfway, top deal. But you gotta do it by the sweat of your brow. You gotta have something in the game. And so that's the way I'm approaching this thing. Every day, all day, every hour that I can give to it, we sit down as a family and had a conversation about what it looks like, what it entails. And, my kids know that I'm missing events, missing games, but they're all in,
Right.
As a family. They understand, they'll come to me and be like, hey, Dad, we got this going on. I'm sorry I have a conflict that day. It's for this. Okay. All right. There's no hurt feelings. There's no second guessing about it. They're like, well, you catch it all next time. And that's been awesome.
Right.
Having that backing, that support back home. And so we're all in.
Good. Let's talk about what just recently took place in Searcy County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know those people somewhat well, most of them. And that was very angry. That made me angry.
Yeah.
When citizens want to be a part of the process and they get elected and they're doing the absolute best that they can, but they're doing what the people, their constituents, actually want them to do.
Yes.
To then be punished for that.
Yes.
And listen, don't sugarcoat it. It was harassment, it was bullying, and it was retribution because they went outside of what Little Rock didn't want them to do.
Right.
But full stop.
Right.
That's what happened. And it's because they went with paper ballots and they were successful. And they were like, well, because they were successful, we got to come up with another way to get rid of them.
Right.
And what they did is they said, well, because you only paid $100 a day for this audio-visual equipment to record, when they were doing a hand-marked paper ballot counting, they wanted full transparency. So this group called AVII, Arkansas Voter Integrity Initiative,
Right.
leased them equipment for $100 a day, cameras and televisions, so that people wouldn't be right overlooking everyone's shoulder. They could be offset and looking at a monitor and know everything that was going on.
Right.
And that same deal was offered to any county that decided to go with paper ballots. They would give them the same fee. Well, the Arkansas Election Board said that was fraud and that it was uncouth and was a sub price. And so because of that, and they had a vested interest in it because of their background pushing for paper ballots, that there had to be fraud there, and they forced them out of position and gave them a 14-year ban on it.
Yeah, so I guess that the people who own our voting machines don't have any vested interest.
No, they
At
didn't live in
all,
the state of
right?
Arkansas. Now, these machines are manufactured with components from adversarial nations.
Right.
They're not owned by the state of Arkansas. We don't know the source code.
We don't know the source code. We can't read the barcode.
No. And the Supreme Court in Arkansas has ruled that we don't have a right to know that source code because it's proprietary knowledge. And so you're really throwing your vote in a black box and just hoping it's being reflected the best. So
Right.
You don't know. We're not saying that it's nefarious activity every time, but let's pretend I'm from Missouri and you got to show me.
Right.
You got to show me. And until you do, I don't trust you. And I'm not going to trust a piece of equipment that has components made in China that's
Right.
being used to influence, that's being used to calculate our elections. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
In the military, we call that low risk, high reward. If you can encumber your enemy with very minimal effort, very low risk, but the impact of it is extremely high, you're going to execute on that every single time.
Right.
What harm would ever come to the nation of China if they were discovered to be, manipulating votes and machines? Nothing. There's
Right.
nothing that's going to happen to them. They're just going to throw away the machines and get rid of them and move forward. So why wouldn't they? If you think about what is the cost of your vote, what's your vote worth in America? Well, right now it's worth about $37 trillion and counting.
Right.
Because at the ballot box, you determine who gets elected, and those people determine where that money is spent. So you can have direct influence over $37 trillion of wealth through the ballot box.
Right. And let's be very clear. The people of Searcy County voted for paper ballots.
Yes.
And so they ran a very successful general election. They got 100% accuracy in the general election. This is so important for people to understand. I mean, it is maddening as to what has happened to in Searcy County. And you can actually go, I did this interview with Lori Goss just a couple weeks ago, and that interview is called Banned for Ballots, the Searcy County Election Scandal, how Arkansas's only paper ballot county was silenced for 14 years. They voted for paper ballots. They got paper ballots. In their audit after the general election, they were 100% accuracy.
Yeah.
And our current Secretary of State has supported this ban on them for 14 years,
Yeah.
which is the maximum ban.
Sending a message.
Yes,
That's not leadership.
correct.
It's not building a team, and that's not working with the people of Arkansas. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a right to choose their own destiny. And Searcy County knows what's best for Searcy County. Benton knows what's best for Benton.
Right.
Little Rock does not know what we need in these areas. They're too detached. And for them to just heavy-handedly treat their citizens like this, and you've met her here. She's a wonderful human being.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Totally undeserving.
Right.
It doesn't make sense why you would do that. And it's a recipe for failure, because all it does is it just ticks a bunch of people off, and it creates that further divide. And then it tells all the rest of the counties that, well, if we don't do exactly what Little Rock wants, they're going to treat us the same.
That's right.
So now you have a relationship of just strict obedience, never speaking truth to power, and denying your constituents their will, because in the GOP, more than 70%, I think it's 74, 75% of the people in the Republic that identify as Republicans want paper ballots. And throughout the entire state, to include independents and Democrats, it's over 60-something percent, 63,
Right.
64%.
Right.
So you're basically saying, we don't care what the majority of Arkansans want. You're going to do what we tell you to, no matter what. And if you don't, we're going to ban you for 14 years and fire you. If you act up as a Republican committee, we're going to dissolve you.
Kick you out for 20 years.
And kick you out for 20 years. Like recently, you had Lori Justice, who was who was kicked out for 7 years, I believe she got kicked out for. Barry Eggers is Eggers' wife. I think there were 7 of them total out of Craighead County that were treated that way. And if you ever meet those individuals, they're salt of the earth Americans. They're made in Arkansans. They're straight up great people that want nothing more than to volunteer their time, talents, and energy and money for the betterment of their community. And that's how they were treated.
Yeah. I look at the Secretary of State's position, and what I would like for you to talk about is what are some changes that you would like to bring to the Secretary of State?
I have a plan.
Okay.
I definitely do. I don't want to disclose all of that plan because you never want to show too much of your cards. And some stuff you don't want people to see coming.
Right.
But what I will do is ensure that things are streamlined. Communication channels are opened. There is a relationship with these counties, election commissioners, and county clerks. The messaging will be consistent, and the messaging will be reflective of the people's will and not the Politburo and what they want. And we will exercise within the framework of the law to give the people what it is they want, and also ensure that we're adhering to the president's executive order and law. Like there's a law on the books now that says critical infrastructure cannot have foreign-made components in it. Elections have been deemed critical infrastructure.
Yes.
So that means that they cannot certify the machines in the state of Arkansas. They're going to try to do some workarounds.
Right.
But through some FOIAs, even the current Secretary of State's office has admitted that they're looking at a paper ballot election in 26. And they're not preparing for it. And when you don't prepare, you prepare to fail.
Right.
Right? And maybe that's
is that what they want? Do they want to fail to prove a point?
It'd be convenient, wouldn't it?
It would be, because that's what I feel. I feel like that they're not preparing because they want to say that it doesn't work, that it's a failed process. Well, if you don't prepare for something, Cersei, when I talked to Lori, she told me in the primaries, there was 8 people that did not get counted, that they accidentally overlooked. And the things that happened in the primary, which was their very first time running a paper ballot, election, they got absolutely no help whatsoever. None. No help. So they made a few mistakes that they corrected to prepare for the general election, but they got no help. And I think, well, why did you not get help?
There was someone from the state there that knew some of the mistakes that were being made and didn't bring it to their attention.
Correct. We talked about that.
One that could have been easily solved.
Calculator paper.
They didn't want to.
Calculator paper. What an easy concept. You need calculator paper.
And to me, I've been in leadership. It's my responsibility, mine as the leader, to ensure that you have the tools required to do the task that I set before you, the training in order to effectively conduct the task that I set before you, and then the mentorship and guidance along the way to make sure that you're doing it right.
Right.
So to me, Searcy County didn't fail. Little Rock failed.
Correct.
Because the buck stops with them. It's their responsibility. And paper ballots still happen in the state of Arkansas, so they know how to do them. They throw that out that it's cost prohibitive all the time, right? But what does our most populous county in Arkansas do on election day? In a lot of their remote precincts, Pulaski County, they do hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. And they say that it's because they can't afford to put machines. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Right.
You're going to say on one hand it's too expensive, right? But then you say, well, we can't go with paper ballots because it's too expensive, but we can't use them on the election day because we can't afford to put all the machines out at the smaller precincts. So Little Rock knows how to do paper ballots.
And when we have to question the machines, we're going to count them by hand, correct?
Yeah.
Why don't we just do that to begin with?
Well, there's a state law that says the audit must be done in the same manner in which the vote was taken.
Yep.
So they have to run them right back
through the machine.
Right. And there's all kinds of nuances that they talk about this. But do you remember the Volkswagen scandal?
No, I do
One of the
not.
biggest issues they say is that, well, our machines are not hooked up to the internet, so they can't be messed up. Well, if you can recall, the Volkswagen, it was one of the biggest lawsuits in world history, the fine that Volkswagen had to pay.
Okay.
It was that emission scandal, right? They were selling this vehicle as, basically no pollutants, and this small block diesel engine got the absolute best MPG per gallon ratio that you can get. Well, people started, they weren't getting the miles per gallon that was being advertised, and people started asking questions. Well, every time they brought it in for testing, the computer inside the vehicle would recognize that a device was plugged in. And it would be like, okay, I'm going to act right. I'm going to give a report that I'm supposed to give. It's not connected to the internet, but it sensed that something was being plugged into it, and it would behave exactly the way it was supposed to be. And so the report was right. Come to find out through the lawsuit that it was programmed that anytime something was plugged into it or a diagnostic was being done, it would act the way that it's supposed to act. Right? Any computer device can be done that way. That computer inside those machines have a clock. It knows what time it is. It knows what day it is.
Right.
So it can be programmed all the way up. When you're doing the testing, I'm going to behave a certain way. Then when the clock hits this, I can behave differently perhaps. And if someone puts a thumb drive in it to check to see what I'm doing, I behave a certain way again.
Right.
And then when that device is gone, behave a different way if the clock is still in alignment with me telling to do that. And then when the clock expires, I just go right back to, and you would never know. It would be impossible to know and figure out. And that's the issue. So we don't know. And until that vulnerability is closed 100% with full confidence, which I don't think it can be, it can't meet DOD standard, because in DOD, you can't use a thumb drive on any government system, because viruses are easily transmuted. You don't know what's on that software. You don't know what else is coming with that. So they're just banned completely.
Right.
So they couldn't transmit the information, the ballots, everything like that via the USB thumb drive. And we're never going to be able to close the loop on the internals of those machines to be in alignment with the highest standard in the land, which we should not be. Our elections are too important to not be held to the absolute highest of standards.
Right.
And machines are never going to be able to meet it.
Let's talk about something that just recently happened. A couple years ago, they raised the filing fees. And now we've raised them again. And Arkansas's at the bottom of the scale economically.
Economically, yeah.
And we have one of the highest filing fees that there is. And we're...
I think we're top 3, right? Yeah. Maybe top one.
And what's our state motto?
Regnant populace.
And what does that mean? The people rule. How can the people rule if the people can't even afford the filing fees?
It's a great question.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, thankfully mine didn't increase this time around, but they did increase them again. And I like to call it, I believe Courtney Rowland is who I heard it first from. It's called the Incumbent Protection Plan.
Yep.
And that's exactly what it is. When you're already in, you've already got an advantage. And then if you raise the fees where your average citizen can't even afford to get it on the ballot and they know it, then you're limiting your competition right off the bat.
Right.
Which, hey, if you're so financially able and inclined, you can go to bryannorris.org and help me raise that $10,000 filing fee to get my name on the ballot for you. That just puts a roadblock there, because that 10 grand or 40 grand now for some of them doesn't go to anything else. And it's supposed to go to the Republican Party of Arkansas to assist candidates in running in the general. We're a solid red state. There's not too many statewide seats that's going to have a legitimate Democratic opponent that has a chance.
Right.
So that money just stays in their coffers, right? And they can't help in a primary with that money. So that's just that whole reasoning doesn't hold water, and why they want to do that. All it is designed to do is it's a gatekeeper. It's the Incumbent Protection Plan. That's the best thing for it, and it's to let you know, like, this is a club, and you can afford to be in it.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. It's a little maddening when you think about
It's
it.
so frustrating.
It
Missouri's $300 for a statewide seat. Idaho was $250 for most of their statewide seats. I think it was 400 for like governor or something like that. Running for Congress in Idaho is $400. California is not even as expensive as we are. You know, I think Alabama was pretty high too.
it's so out of touch with people,
Yeah,
with the general population.
it's kind of in your face, isn't it?
It is.
You
It
know,
is.
like shut up, sit down.
Right.
You know,
That's exactly what it feels like.
yeah, same here. But you know, to me, I say good. I'm going to raise even more money. I'm going to do more. I don't look at problems and obstacles the way that most people do. I look at them as an opportunity to figure out creative ways to get around them,
Right.
to build teams, to maximize a group of people towards a goal and objective to overcome, because nothing solidifies relationships and teams than obstacles, than
Right.
hardships, right? You want to know why there's such a bond in the military between military people? It's because we've all been through some hard stuff together and we have that commonality. You know,
Right.
you don't suffer through PT and obstacle courses and all these training events and all that stuff without building a team. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, poor, rich, whatever.
Right.
At the end of it, you're all equally just pooped.
Right.
And you start to build that, you know, and that's what I see. So we have an obstacle that we can guide one another to, we can coalesce around, and then when we achieve that obstacle, we can just look right at them and say, what's next?
Yep. Yep, that's exactly right. You know, you talk about that team building, and which is so important. And I know that you talked about reaching out to your website, but what can the people do to come on to your team and help you win this seat?
You know, many hands make light work. So as we find our processes out, signing up via our website, giving your email address, and following me on social media, Facebook and X, working, you know, spreading the word, because I don't have statewide name recognition, you know, and neither does my opponent really. So we're on level playing field there, but people have to know who you are to vote for you. So spreading the word, let them know. Let them reach out to me. I'll come to your Kiwanis groups. I'll come to your Rotary Club groups. I'll come to your veterans groups. I'm not going to say no. I may not be able to come at that day because I have a conflict, but we can figure out a time and I'll get to you. My goal is to go to every county. I will speak to anyone that listens. I don't care if there's just one person there. I'll come. We can do it on Zoom. We can do it on Teams. We can do it on social media. We can do it whatever. I'm going to put myself out there so you can help spread that word. If you're able to financially contribute to help us overcome that first obstacle, fantastic. And then just getting the word out to people is going to be the biggest thing. And letting them know who I am. I mean, I'm a pretty much an open book. You can ask some questions. I'm not gonna hide anything from you. I mean, I am what I am. I'm a failed, broken human being that was saved by his creator, and thankfully I'm not perfect, but I have an opportunity to get a little bit better every day. And that's the way I approach my life.
Right.
With everything that I do. I look at it as, if every day I can get 1% better in something, at the end of that year, I'm 365% better than I was when I started this.
Right.
And whether that's being a father, being a husband, being a leader in the military, being a project manager, whatever it is I'm doing, I concentrate on that methodology, just little increment improvements every day. I am a much better husband than I was when me and my wife first got better, because I dedicated myself to that. And staying married, as you probably know, is a choice.
It is.
Right?
Yes,
It's a
is.
partnership.
Yep.
And we've made that choice and dedicated ourselves to it. And, you know, I've had to look the man in the mirror sometimes and swallow some uncomfortable truths and improve myself in that process.
Haven't? Yes, we have.
We have to do that.
Yeah, you have to do that if you want to. It is a choice, and
Well,
you got to swallow the pride sometimes. Eat some humble pie.
Some of the hardest things is now that my kids are growing up a little bit is eating the humble pie from them.
Yeah.
Is when they call you out on your stuff.
Yeah.
I can't be the person that says, well, that's the way that I said do it. Don't look at what I do what I say. I can't be that. I have to look and be like,
Yeah, those are different conversations for grown children, aren't they?
I don't like it. You're right. It doesn't mean I like it, but you're right. I accept it. We'll have a conversation about it, and I'll correct myself.
Right.
And that's the best that I can do. And I'm going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. The difference between me and most people, and especially most politicians, is I'm going to be honest with you about my mistakes.
Right.
And I'm going to come up with a solution to fix it.
Well, you're a combat veteran, and so and you're a leader, and so one thing that you know how to do is you know how to go for the fight and put a plan together. And Kim Hammer has been in politics since Moby Dick was a minnow, right? He has been at this for a long time, and he has the backing of the establishment. And but you have some really high profile backing, so I want to talk about that for just a minute. You have General Mike Flynn, who was former Trump National Security Advisor. You have the endorsement of Mike Lindell. He's the CEO of MyPillow and a close ally of President Trump. You have Justice Michael Gableman, former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice and 2020 election investigator. You have the endorsement of Senator Wendy Rogers and Senator Mark Finchman, both Trump-endorsed legislators and leaders of Arizona's election security efforts. And, of course, our own Colonel Conrad Reynolds, Arkansas's leading advocate for hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots and chair of the National MESA Task Force. And so you have some really powerful names that are endorsing you.
And they have powerful names because of their character.
Yes.
That's the common theme amongst all of those.
Right.
Is they're high character individuals. And they don't just endorse anyone.
Right.
So I'm extremely honored to have their support. I'm grateful for their support and the things that they've said about me. And I would encourage people to go and look up. If you don't know these individuals, just look them up.
Right.
It's pretty impressive what Senator Wendy Rogers and Senator Finchman are doing in Arizona, the things that they're accomplishing. And because we know that Arizona's had some issues.
Right.
And they're working hard.
Right.
And they've been in the fray for a little while now, so you can see their record and you can see their character. And the same with Justice Gableman. He's not on social media or stuff that much either, but the man went into the fight. He went full into it, and nobody's been put through the ringer more than Michael Lindell that I've seen.
Yeah.
And he's come out. He's been proven to be right and on point and loyal and steadfast.
He has got a lot of energy that's fun to watch.
It is. Yeah, it is. He's a great guy. And same with General Flynn.
Yeah.
General Flynn was a DCG in one of the commands that I was in. And I also his brother was a DCG for another, I think it was a DCG. He was a 1-star back then for a unit I was in. I don't know if he was a DCG or just a staff star. But I've listened to both of them give speeches and talks before they were in the political fray. Well, his brother's still in the active component. And there was leaders in the military that, especially in the general officers, flag officers, that were politicians. And they would say a lot of great things, but that they never really made a decision that affected change. They never implemented policies that were, driving stuff that needed to happen. But then there are general officers that would do, right?
Right.
And they were general officers that would do. Like you knew what needed to be done under General Flynn. You knew what his expectations were, and he would make decisions and drive things that were substantive.
Right.
All about action, all about affecting change for the positive, and that's what he's been since he's got out too. So I know he doesn't remember me from way back in those days, and me being, I think I was a staff sergeant first class at the time, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate working for him. It's coming full circle now. It's seeing that I got his endorsement is so honoring, and the fact that he was treated the way he was for trying to be that change agent in intelligence as the national intelligence director for Trump's first administration, and they went full ham against him.
Yes, they did.
At any time that group goes, now we know. Anytime that group goes full ham against somebody, that's probably our guy.
Right. Right.
Like Pam Bondi. The way that they did it to Trump too, the way they went after Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, I have a lot of friends that's still on active duty. And I kind of wish I was in to see what's happening now in the DOD, because the motivation of them, the morale is insane. They love all the stuff that's happening. One of them said it best to me, who I still mentor a little bit. He was like, I can be a soldier again without fear.
Right.
I can do what needs to be done without fear. And so thank God that he was able to stick it out and get in there and do that, because when I was in, the Obama administration, I think, figured this out. They realized the way to create generational change very quickly was through the military.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get masses of people in at a young, vulnerable age
Right.
who get transformed and then are under the direct guidance of command authority like you've never experienced, and it is unparalleled any other aspect of life in America. So you can really shape someone's life experiences through that. And when I came back from a deployment in 2010, something changed in the military, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it then, but now I recognize it as it was his policies for those changes.
Right.
That's when you started seeing all the crazy offices coming up, and commanders couldn't really command because there was a commissar, by the way of the weaponization of equal opportunity or sharp offices or those things.
Right.
That could get a commander fired.
Right.
Like that for no reason. And so we stopped training, we stopped doing the things that needed to be done, and everyone was walking on eggshells. And now that's changing, and it had to change. If we're going to be an effective fighting force, there's just some things that they don't go together.
Right.
They never will.
Right.
It's not going to work.
Right.
When you're training people to survive the absolute worst day that they could ever imagine, ever, you've got to get comfortable with uncomfortable.
That's right. That's right. And not worry about if we're hurting someone's feelings or stepping on someone's toes all the time, right?
And these guys they're not trying to belittle you, demean you. They're trying to make you into something.
Right.
And sometimes, you gotta get comfortable with the uncomfortable aspects of it.
Right.
And figure it out.
Right.
Let them do it. We created the most effective fighting force that the world has ever seen.
Yes.
We didn't do that by walking on eggshells and caring about everyone's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to close the distance, achieve the dominant position, and finish the fight on the enemy. That's what you do. Lethality through violence of action. It's not the prettiest workplace.
Right. But that's what our military is for,
That's
right? And I'm so proud to have President Trump in office, and I'm just really proud of the leadership that he has, and he understands the military. And although he's not been in the military, he understands what it takes to lead and to have
people that do understand
right
to do what's needed.
Right. I was really excited about him picking Pete Hegseth.
I think it was a class act pick. But as great as President Trump is, and how popular he is, he's about to be the most popular president in American history. That's what the polls are saying.
Oh, sure.
Right. He's about to surpass Obama. Why are these Republican governors not supporting his agenda that's making him the most popular president in American history?
Right.
Why does he have to continuously call out, like our own governor, Sarah Sanders,
right,
about not going with paper ballots and not implementing things that he's trying to get across?
Right. She says she hears from him every week. Well, why are we not doing something about it?
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess her.
You're really busy working.
No one else sees the work.
No one else sees it.
That's right.
But to me, it's a lost opportunity. It's a once in a multi-generational chance we have to really fix some stuff. And it doesn't take that much. The boss is on board.
Right.
He's going to let you do it. He's not going to stand in your way. You just got to do the little bit of work on your end to bring it to. And guess what? The American people want it too. So it's a win-win.
When you pose yourself as someone who backs the MAGA agenda of President Trump, and you're running for governor, right, or Congress, it would really, and you get such strong support from the MAGA people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We the people. It would really do you well to follow the agenda that he's laid out.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing. It's mind-blowing to me that they're not.
Right.
Really,
it's kind of a smoke screen, right? When you say, I believe in his, policies, and I back President Trump, but then you get into that position based upon the fact that you aligned yourself with President Trump, and then It's like a complete 180 turn.
It is, isn't it? It's baffling. And then they'll go out and push this Heritage Foundation report to the max.
Yes.
What do you think about Georgia's elections?
I think that there's some problems there. Yeah.
You wouldn't say they're great, right?
Right.
Well, Sarah Sanders and Cole Jester and multiple legislators, high-level people in the state have been running around saying Arkansas is number one by the Heritage Foundation. Number
Right.
one. Guess who else was?
Exactly.
Georgia was in 2020.
Yes. When they came out with that, I was reading that and I was like, well, that's really not something to be shouting from the
Georgia is still
megaphone.
ranked number 4 in 2024, and they haven't changed anything from 2020.
Right.
It's because they look at the laws. They don't look at how you conduct elections. So on the law book, on the papers, yeah, Arkansas is pretty good. We got voter ID, we got all of these checks and everything's going on. It's good. But the effective force of those elections are terrible.
Right.
They're absolutely terrible. So it's wild to me that you can say that they're number one for election integrity and run around saying that. But every cyber election security expert, Dr. Andrew Appel and others across the nation say you're actually about third from the bottom.
Right.
The state of Arkansas, because you have the ballot marking devices, you have the EPO books, and you have these tabulators, all of which have issues in the way that you do them. So you're not number one.
Right. Right. So you're running against Kim Hamer. What is your plan for winning? We've got to have a winning strategy here.
We do have a plan. My plan is put myself out there before the people and let them decide. Just like we've been sitting here talking today, you can't fake a conversation like this for an hour.
No.
2 hours. I could keep going all day long. I'm not going to change, and that's what the people's going to see. So we are targeting. There's areas that we got to target. We're absolutely going to hit them, like Pulaski County, Benton County, Washington County, Craighead County. The major counties. But I'm not leaving the small counties out either. I'm treating them all equally. I will go to every county in this state before the election's over and have everyone here with me. And, we're going to do the stereotypical campaign stuff. We'll be in events. We'll be at, the fairs and all that stuff. We'll be getting our stuff out there. We're going to have a good social media presence that we're building and getting better. And, as things develop, what I didn't want to do is we didn't want to start out a campaign and have everything set in stone. I want to be adaptable, adapt and overcome, right? So we started out with a shell. We have a rough general outline of our campaign strategy and campaign plan that we want. And then we're going to see how things get attention and react.
Right.
And we're going to maximize on those. And we're going to adapt to that. And we're going to pull money and resources and things that we had that doesn't seem to be working so well. And we're going to inject them there and target that. And we're going to conduct after action reports.
Right.
My buddy that goes with me on a lot of these talks, when we get back, the first thing that we start doing, what went right, what went wrong, what can we do better? And then we take our notes from that, we digest it, we have a couple conversations over the next couple of days, and then we refine our speech, our talking points, and how we're going to approach things. And we make ourselves better a little bit every time.
Right.
And that's how we're going to approach this campaign. We have an outline. We have our go, because and we have a plan, because a go without a plan is just a wish.
Right.
So we do have a structure, we have a plan, but we don't want to be so rigid on that we can't adapt and pivot to where we need to be. And that's going to be, you could take it from a business standpoint. We're going to be agile.
Right.
Right. But we're going to be agile in the right ways to maximize the effects when we're getting positive reports back from them.
So go into counties. People can follow you on social media. And I know that you would want people to share, comment on all of your posts that you put out there and ask you questions. You're very engaging.
Yeah, ask me. And that's a big point too, because legacy media is dead. Everywhere I go across the state, nobody's really listening to legacy media that much.
No.
They're all getting their news and stuff through X and social media. So being that voice that amplifies what we're doing out to people is how we're going to reach the masses. And more than anything, if you can go on it and just comment, share, ask questions, pass it on, tag people, do all that stuff so they can see who I am, reach out to me. I'm not going to shy away from them. I'll get their questions.
Right.
They may not like the answer because not everybody's going to agree with me, but I'm going to be honest with them and tell them exactly where I am.
I think one of the things that I hear from people, oftentimes when someone runs for a position and they win and they get into that position, uh, then it comes to, well, someone comes to mentor you in that position. And so, to me, in effective, what that means is they're training you on what to do, what to say, how to vote, all of those things. How are you going to put boundaries and into place to stay true to why the voters put you in that position, especially if you're running up against, our own governor?
That is such a great question that most people wouldn't think. The difference between me and like a lot of your most term freshman legislators that get in is they've never felt that before. I've felt that before, that pressure from very senior command authority people. And you have a choice to make. Either you can stay true to yourself or you can sell your soul a little bit, right? So my guardrails is who I am. I'm stubborn sometimes to a fault, but I don't sway to peer pressure. I didn't take the vaccine because I wasn't going to be peer pressured into it.
Right.
If it's not right and I don't feel it's right, I'm just not going to do it. The governor wants to call me in her office and try to persuade me how to do something. I'll listen to her. She's the governor. But at the end of the day, I'm not there to do what she wants. I'm there to do what the people want and to give them the end state that they want, which is elections that they have confidence in, that they are fully aware of the process. And when they walked away from it, they felt that their voice was reflected the way that they wanted to. And there's, anytime you're in a power position, there's going to be people that want to get in on that. They want a seat at the table and they want to have influence, and either whether that's for monetary gain from them or to just have influence to push a certain agenda that they have or whatever. So you've really got to have some discernment, and you got to ground yourself. And one of the things that I do constantly still to this day is the man in the mirror exercise. I do this almost every night, not every night, but almost every night, is I just look myself in the mirror every day and I go over what I did that day.
Right.
Did I accomplish what I wanted to do? If not, why? If I didn't do it, was it because something got in the way that I couldn't control? Or was I being lazy and just didn't want to do it? Well, I was being lazy. Well, why are you being lazy? And after you do this a while, you'll realize that it gets uncomfortable being honest with yourself.
Yeah. Self-reflection is big.
All right. And I'll just continue that same mantra. The biggest azimuth on it is at the end of the day, the only person I care what thinks about me is my bride that lays next to me in bed at night. And as long as she's still got that little twinkle in her eye and she's smiling at me, then I know I'm probably on azimuth, because
Right.
my wife doesn't tolerate bullcrap. And she'll call me out on stuff real quick and she'll say, "You're lying."
Yeah.
Or "You're not being honest." Or "You said you were going to do something, you're not doing it." Like she doesn't suffer fools at all.
Right.
And so if I can do that and sleep well, lay in bed next to her and sleep well, I'm probably on course pretty good.
Right.
And back in my previous life, there was things that we would say that, pretty much everyone has an Achilles heel on: sleep, food, right? Or comfort, creature comforts, whatever. You can isolate maybe two of those, but one of those is your Achilles heel. That's your weakness. Mine was sleep. You could starve me, you could treat me like crap, but I gotta sleep. And my team would know that.
Right.
And so I wasn't the guy that you put on a 48-hour guard shift, because it's just my weakness. And so if I'm not getting sleep, something's got to give.
Right.
Right. And then I know I'm not doing what I need to be doing the right way. And I'm not going to ever put myself in a position of where I can't go home and sleep at night and look at my wife and be proud of what I've done.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my anchor post on it. And I'm going to give the people of Arkansas what it is that they're looking for, what the majority is, because regnant populace, the people rule.
Right.
And the majority of the people want something. That's the way that it is. It's my responsibility and my duty to implement their will. I'm just a steward. I'm a custodian of a seat for a brief moment in time that I'll have the honor to hold. And that honor is to be reflective of the people that put me there and continue through with their desires and wishes.
Yeah, people are so they're so worn out with politicians. They're so worn out with
Thankfully, I'm not.
with the placating to, I support Trump's agenda just to get elected, to, get into office, to not perform in the manner in which you support Trump, right?
And being bullied and harassed.
Yeah, and we have a huge problem with that in the Republican Party here in Arkansas.
We do.
And, so, with being in committees and talking to other people around the state in the Republican Party, in the committees, the people, it's exhausting to support a candidate that goes in, and then, a year and a half later, you're sitting here going, well, who bought them out?
Yep. Yeah. You're absolutely right. But I'll tell you this, when I'm out going around, by the time I get done, there's a fire that gets lit back up. And that only shines through because you know truth when you see it.
Right.
You know honesty when you see it. And there's that little voice that's going to be talking into you, maybe hesitant, maybe I'm not really feeling this too much, what's going on here. And then there's that voice inside of you being like, yep, on point, got it. And I'm seeing that everywhere I go. The receptions have been phenomenal, especially after I speak and people start to get to know me a little bit when I'm talking and sharing my story and sharing what it is that I want to do. And there's some out there that don't want nothing to do with paper ballots and securing elections, and they want to go with the status quo, or they want to keep their people in. It's in. That's fine. That's their choice. We're free. Right. You're free to make those choices. But overwhelmingly, the response has been incredibly popular. And I'm not bringing negativity. I'm not. I don't live my life that way. Life's too short for negative stuff. If you're a negative person, you're an energy thief. I don't hang out with you.
Right.
I ain't got time for you. And I live my life that way. I wake up around 4:30 every morning, and the first thing I do is just convince myself today's going to be a fantastic day, whether I like it or not. And some days it's easier than others to do that. And on the hard days, I just push through. And I accomplish the first set of tasks of the day, whatever it is I'm going to do it. And I just continue that. And before you know it, it's 9, 10 o'clock in the morning and you're jiving,
Right.
and even though you might not have had the best start of that day, it ends up being a good day.
Yeah.
And I'm having a great day every day. I'm never not going to have a great day. And that's what I'm going to bring to that. We're not going to be negative. We're going to recognize what's wrong and the issues that are at hand, and we're going to deal with those. Mm-hmm. We're going to work around them. But we're a glass half full. Right. And I look at that issue like, okay, you didn't get to give your report at the last state committee meeting. You were denied that opportunity. Good. You get to go back. You get to refine that process. You get to refine what it was you were going to say.
Right.
You get to talk through with your local people a little bit more. And you find opportunities to put that out there. And you can highlight. Like, look, the first person that was supposed to come and report after they called for an adjournment was the minority chair for the state of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't want to hear what the minority chair had to say?
Right.
You didn't want to hear what all 4 of your district chairmen had to say about what's going on in the party in their areas?
Yes.
How can you as a leader, how can you affect change, messaging, create a team if you don't know and understand what's going on in the people that are underneath you in that chain of command? Mm-hmm. If you don't listen to them and get an understanding of what's happening at the ground, how do you know your messaging is on point?
Well, that seems to be part of the problem, right? We don't need to listen to the people ground down because we've got the people at the top up pushing down on you.
That's a way.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be the way that we're leading.
History is riddled with people that's tried to lead that way.
Yeah,
and they've always failed.
Yes.
Inevitably.
It causes more division, more chaos, and more issues politically than if you allowed the people's voices to be heard.
Yeah. Well, look at the people that were up there running that meeting. They're exhausted. Mm-hmm. You can see it in their face.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at us.
Yeah.
We're not.
No.
And that story right there tells you something.
Yes.
You're not. Something else is going on there. It's visible. You can see it. And that if you're happy with that state and you want to be in that state, Charlie might keep moving on. Continue mission. right?
Right.
But eventually it's going to catch up to you and you're not going to be able to maintain. It's unsustainable the way that they're conducting themselves.
Right.
You know, sooner or later, they're going to find themselves completely isolated away from everyone else because the people that's with them and supporting them now are only doing it because they have a vested interest in what they can provide them.
Yes.
Right?
That's exactly
And the real
right.
power is what you saw in that room, which was 80% of the people wanting something, and then only 10% of the people were driving a different agenda
Yeah.
to what they wanted, right? You're outnumbered, and you're just making that number grow more and more. I mean, there's people coming over to our position and our side more every day because of your actions. You're the best player on my team. I mean, I'm not trying to give out some inside baseball knowledge and help you out, at all. I kind of want you to keep doing what you're doing because you're my MVP right now.
Right.
So by all means, don't let me get in your way. When your enemy's caloric, don't interfere.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of what they are. It's unsustainable. They won't be able to do it. They're just it's impossible for them to continue that way. I mean, those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And it's sad.
Well, I want you to take this opportunity to share with our listeners anything else that you would like for them to know about you or your run for the Secretary of State. And go ahead and give your call out to your social medias and your website.
Well, thank you. Well, if you want a politician, shop somewhere else. If you want somebody that's going to speak truth to you, that is going to let you know where they stand, that's going to respect where you're at as a citizen and listen to you and do the best they can to, bring your will to fruition at the highest levels of power, I'm your guy.
Right.
The Bible talks about not having fear most of all. And the second in that mix would kind of be, you'll know them by their fruit, right? And I didn't have everything to do with raising my kids, but they're my fruit, and they're pretty freaking good. So when you come around, you see, as my kids come out with me on the campaign, just take a look at my fruit,
Right.
and take a look at the fruit that I did in the military. Take a look at the fruit that I've done being a project manager. Take a look at the fruit that I did leading the petition process in Independence County. They've all been overwhelmingly good things and support people. So and that's how you can see what I've done, my credentials and everything. I'm not just talking, I've done.
Right.
The record's for itself, right? And my website is bryannorris.org, Bryan with a Y.
Yep.
On social media, you can find me Facebook, Bryan Lee Norris, and Norris for Arkansas is the campaign Facebook page. And then on X, it's Bryan Lee Norris again. We're going to get into doing weekly sit reps, situation reports where I want to be transparent. I want to tell people how far we've gone, who we've talked to, how much money we've got, how much money we've spent, all of these things, so that people can see, where we are, what we're doing, how we're feeling, what's working, what's not, how we're going to adjust. Just kind of be an open book and let them get an inside look at the campaign that they usually probably don't get. I don't want to have power for power's sake. In fact, I chose to be a project manager because on the civilian side, because you don't have to lead people. And I've done that a lot in the military, and it's very taxing, and I know what it takes. I wanted a break from that, so I became project manager. I can lead projects, and I deal with people all the time, but I don't have to manage them. I know that's going to change when I become Secretary of State, and I'm fully cognizant of what that's going to be like, and I know how to handle it. And it doesn't matter if you're leading 10,000 people or 10 people. Problems are the same. You just have to institute people that you trust at different levels that you can manage effectively and ensure that the things that you're doing are being amplified down the chain. Checks and balances.
Right. Right.
And I'm beyond humbled to have this opportunity. I think it is an immense responsibility. We are stewards of an unbroken chain in a government experience that dates back to our founding, that is nothing other than a miracle. And I'm not going to be the generation or in a position to be the one that lets it slip further away from us. Our republic will be stronger. Your voice will be heard. Your wishes will be implemented. And I will be that steward of our great experiment, this republic, as I get to represent you. And I'm looking forward and humbled for the opportunity. I can't wait to get after it. The same energy that you see that I bring in, the work that I'm doing right now, it's going to be worse when I get in office. I hope they're ready.
Yeah.
I hope they can keep up with me. I tell people when I go out, no one's going to work harder than me. They may work as hard as me, but they're not going to outwork me. I mean, good luck working as hard as me.
Right.
But you definitely ain't going to outwork me. And it's just going to continue when I go. And so get ready to roll them sleeves up.
I imagine as a project manager, you're making your list of projects already of what you want to do when you become Secretary of State.
Yes, absolutely.
I can already see that.
Yeah. And I can't wait. I can't wait to bring in and affect change positively. Build a team.
Right.
Let these counties know that they're not alone. Let these election commissioners know that you can do the hard right and still be effective and be a champion for the people and walk away knowing that it was better. And everyone agrees.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for putting your hat into the ring, right? I saw it coming, and I'm really thankful that, because it's easy to go around and talk about what needs to happen. It's a different story to put your whole heart into it and to run a campaign, especially when you're going up against the establishment. And so I just want to tell you, I appreciate what you're doing, and I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you so much.
Yes. As we wrap up today's episode, one thing is clear. Bryan Norris isn't just running. He's for office. He's running for Arkansas. He's stepping into a race with a servant's heart, a soldier's grit, and deep conviction that the people, not politicians, should decide the future of this state. Whether it's protecting our rights in fair elections, standing up for political pressure, or ensuring transparency in every process, Bryan's message is simple. Your voice matters, and your vote should too. Thank you for joining us on Arkansas First Reports. If today's conversation has stirred in you, don't sit on the sidelines. Share this episode. Get involved and stay engaged. Make sure to reach out to Bryan on his social pages and also through his website. And that's Bryan with a Y, Norris.org, correct?
Correct.
BryanNorris.org.
And Norris for Arkansas at gmail.com. You can email directly.
Yes, Norris for Arkansas at gmail.com is a good way to get in touch with him. Stay engaged. This is a fight that we cannot sit on the sidelines. This position of Secretary of State is an extremely important position in our state. We need to keep our eyes on this race, and we need to step up to the plate to help the person that's going to be the best voice for we the people here in Arkansas. Because the future of Arkansas doesn't belong to the powerful. It belongs to we the people. Until next time, stay bold, stay informed, and stay first for Arkansas.